A dying alien race cried out for help. They reached across the stars, hoping someone, anyone, would listen. They didn't know humanity was still listening, and they didn't know what would happen if it answered. It began not with a scream, but a whisper, a weak, stuttering signal that clawed its way across the void. No harmonics, no encryption, just panic filtered through static. This is Alari vessel Venari 12. Our world burns. Coordinates encoded. If anyone hears us, we beg you. Please, help. It wasn't a military channel. It wasn't formatted for Terran translation. But Deep Watch Station 9A wasn't standard. It was ancient. Buried beneath Saturn's outermost ring cluster, Station 9A was a relic from the old wars, designed not to project strength, but to listen. And inside that hollow tomb of metal and ice, Marcus Hale sat in silence. He hadn't expected to hear anything, not after years of silence, not after Earth had signed its last peace accord and gone still. His days were made of routines, calibrate scans, archived solar dust, sleep. But that day the silence broke. The voice, trembling, half suffocated by static, reached him like a forgotten ghost. Hale leaned in, replayed it. Slower, cleaner, pulled the coordinates. Alari space, a name buried in peacetime treaties. A species known for art, not war. Diplomats, scientists, dreamers. He checked the distress protocol. His hand hovered over the console. He could report it. Let the diplomatic corps assess. He could wait. Let some future roundtable debate whether mercy had merit. But Hale didn't, because Hale remembered. His father had been a child in the Mars collapse. His mother had disappeared during the Silas Rift exchange. Hale didn't carry medals or honors, but he carried their absence. And in that moment, he knew one thing with chilling clarity. This wasn't a cry for diplomacy. This was the sound of extinction. He opened the emergency binder, one sealed by biolock. Only watchers could access it. Inside a single page, a string of code. Protocol Shield Prime, trigger conditions. Confirmed non-human distress, mass casualty scenario, no existing Terran diplomatic contact, status active. Hale pressed his hand to the console. The station pulsed once. Satellites blinked in dormant orbit, and a whisper ran across Terran space, like a blade being drawn from the sheath. Engage Shield Prime. Across the SolNet, systems stirred. The signal traveled fast, burrowing into old relay chains, pinging black sites buried in moons and asteroid cores. It activated protocols that hadn't run in decades, that no living commander remembered authorizing. In the Terran Defense Corps, alarms rang without sound, lights shifted to crimson, files unlocked that were never supposed to be opened again. Deep beneath Mars, a war archive spun awake. Artificial minds, older than many worlds, blinked into consciousness and began calculating. Earth didn't prepare for war. Well, it remembered it. Shield Prime wasn't an assault order. It was a promise. A net that would wrap around any cry for help, because the one thing Earth had sworn never to do again was arrive late. Shipyards once frozen spun to life. Orbital forges activated AI-controlled fleets. Drones were reassembled mid-drift by automated construction webs. And above it all, old ships stirred. TNS Helios marked, mothballed over Mercury's radiation belt, lit its core. TNS Doctrine of Ash, stationed in the far Kuiper fields, began turning its guns. Each vessel bore a name from the last time Earth bled. And from the shadows, hidden AIs whispered in digital unity, reaffirming doctrine: we respond, we do not wait, we do not beg. From Station 9A, Marcus Hale stood and watched the stars come alive with movement. No orders needed, no war councils summoned, just a network of humanity that had built peace upon pain and refused to let history repeat. And somewhere, light years away, on a burning planet where a species whispered its final plea, the skies began to change. The stars shifted, and they brought with them the fire of Earth. The Bracari were a mistake that thought itself prophecy. High General Skarn, overlord of the Ninth Flame Legion, stood amidst the burning ruins of Alari Prime's capital spire, the scent of melted glass and cooked protein thick in the air. He had always believed the Alari were soft. That belief had paid off until now. The first orbital strike was so quiet, most Brakari thought it was a meteorological glitch. The second took out the command relay stationed in the upper ionosphere. The third silenced the planetary guns they had just seized. No warnings, no transmissions, just precision. In a sky still glowing with smoke, black darts began to fall. At first, they seemed like debris, shards of metal tumbling from low orbit. But when the ground shook, when the air screamed around them, they knew. Drop lances, the kind not seen since the old wars. Steel pods slammed into the cracked streets, embedding themselves into Ferrocrete. For a long heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the pods opened, and humans stepped out. No banners, no declarations. Just quiet, terrifying coordination. Each soldier wore armor like obsidian ice, non-reflective, form-locked, adaptive. Their weapons didn't gleam, they pulsed, designed not to impress, to erase. In less than 20 minutes, entire Brakari battalions were gone. Not defeated, removed. High General Skarn bellowed orders. He screamed at his lieutenants. But his comms were dead. His air cover had vanished. His infantry were scattered by coordinated strikes he couldn't track. In one sector, a human unit used redirected plumbing and building schematics to trap and roast a Brakari platoon in their own staging ground. In another, they baited a commander into retreat, then collapsed a 3-story tower on his entire convoy. The humans didn't fight like warriors. They fought like a memory of a fire that never forgot. Skarn snarled and demanded to know who led them. The answer was whispered in the wind, relayed by terrified subordinates, captured by dying cams. Sergeant Naya Calder. She was a ghost from the Battle of Silas Rift, a name buried in Terran decommission logs. No medals, no parades. Just a file that read, effective, controlled, ruthless under fire. And now she was back, leading the 17th Ghost Lance, Urban Neutralization Specialists. As she moved through what remained of the Alari capital, she issued only 3 orders. Sector sweep, no survivors. Archive all data. They weren't here to liberate. They were here to remember and remove. When Skarn finally saw her, across a shattered avenue, through smoke and collapsing stone, he lifted his plasma rifle. But Calder was already aiming, and humans never shot to wound. They ended. Above, orbit began to darken. More Terran ships arrived, not for invasion, for closure. The 17th Ghost Lance did not rest. They did not raise flags or issue ultimatums. They moved like shadow-wrapped blades, erasing resistance with calculated precision. Every Brakari strong point they touched became a crater, or worse, a cautionary monument of silence. Sergeant Nia Calder's unit moved through the heart of Sector 9, the old Alari University district, once a hub of diplomatic learning, now a broken carcass of fire and ruin. As they advanced, Kinley, her recon tech, crouched beside a collapsed data spire. Still active, he whispered, fingers flying across a field console. Tertiary Alari archives survived under the wreck. Pull everything, Calder replied. Voice records, pre-war declarations, medical logs. I want to know how long they begged before someone listened. Kinley swallowed hard but nodded. High above, the Terran dreadnought. TNS Resolute Mercy entered low orbit. The name was no accident. Every ship that responded under Shield Prime bore similar names. Oath Reclaimed, Memory Doctrine, Black Silence. These weren't war vessels. They were declarations in alloy. In the city's shattered council hall, Calder found an Alari elder, alive barely, half covered in debris, eyes dim, voice broken. You came, he rasped. We heard, Calder answered. She didn't kneel. She just handed him a medstim and turned back to the fight. The elder wept, not from pain, but disbelief. For days, the humans pushed outward. They avoided grandstanding. No broadcasts, no forced tribute. They simply annihilated anything Bracari that moved and shielded every Alari they found breathing. One Bracari war clan tried to regroup and counterattack. They lasted 39 minutes. Not because of numbers, because the humans anticipated their retreat vectors and set the roads to collapse beneath them. At dawn on the fifth day, Calder's squad entered the ruins of the first Peace Temple, a sacred Ilari site reduced to a Bracari communications nest. The air reeked of scorched icons and spilled blood. "What now?" Kinley asked as they stepped over broken ceremonial tiles. Calder's voice was low. "Make them regret ever learning the word weakness." At her signal, drones swarmed the skies. Orbital tracking zeroed in. TNS Resolute Mercy aligned her cannons. And the Peace Temple burned again. But this time it burned clean. Somewhere beyond the stars, a Terran AI flagged a message in a distant archive. Ilari response, file updated. Status protected. The war wasn't over. But now it was personal. Bracari Command had no explanation. They had received no warning, no broadcast, no demand for surrender. Just silence and death. From orbit, their cruisers watched as ground installations vanished in synchronized flashes. Each one exact, each one methodical. Not random destruction, not emotional retaliation. Strategy. In Sector 12, Sergeant Nia Calder stood over the blackened remains of what had once been a children's hospital. Ellery bones lay beneath collapsed beams. Medical tools melted into puddles. Her gloved hand hovered above a charred toy. She didn't say a word. Behind her, Kinley knelt beside a Bracari officer's corpse. He used this place as a broadcast hub. He kicked over a half-melted helmet. They knew what it was. Calder's jaw clenched. "Burn it. All of it." She turned to the squad. "Bring the heat down. No salvage, no signal. Make this place disappear like it never existed, because to them it never did." High above, the TNS Final Oath initiated orbital calibration. Admiral Reza Nadir watched the field scans shift, saw the silence widen. "Still no comms from Bracari Prime?" he asked. "None. They've gone dark. Even the auxiliaries. Send them the silence order." Silence was humanity's cruelest doctrine. It meant the Terrans had nothing left to say, and when they had nothing to say, they let their weapons speak. Down below, Calder's team advanced through Sector 17, an industrial shell now repurposed into a Bracari war factory. As they moved through the metallic corridors, Kinley whispered, "Why didn't we come earlier?" Calder didn't answer for a long moment. Then she stopped before a blood-slicked wall, etched with Ilari script. She reached out, tracing the grooves. "Because we thought the galaxy had changed. We thought it didn't need us to be monsters anymore." Kinley swallowed. "And now?" Calder looked at him. "Now we remind them what kind of monsters we can be." At the heart of the factory, they found cages. Not cells, cages. Ilari civilians packed in rusting crates like commodities. Dozens dead, dozens more near it. One boy, no older than 10, looked up as Calder approached. His eyes were sunken, voice dry. "Are you the ones who burn the sky?" Calder knelt. "We're the ones who answer the call," she said. Then into her mic. "Medical evac, full priority. They all leave breathing." The boy reached for her hand with trembling fingers. "Don't leave us again." She gripped him gently. "Never again." The Bracari war factory burned from core to ceiling. Not for vengeance, for memory, for every unanswered cry that finally reached human ears. The redemption burn wasn't a weapon. It was a ritual. High above Ilari Prime, the Terran dreadnought TNS Final Oath shifted into low orbit, opening its belly to the planet below. But instead of kinetic strikes or orbital bombardments, it released flares, white-hot, piercing, and silent. Each flare was encoded with visuals, audio, and coordinates, a signal that would bounce across known systems. A story told in light. The story of what happened here. Nia Calder watched the sky shift color from her position in Sector 17. Flames still licked the horizon behind her, the war factory smoldering like a condemned heart. Kinley stood at her side, face pale. "Is this the burn?" Calder nodded. "This is what we show the galaxy." The light from the redemption burn cast long shadows over the battlefield. In the glow, shattered Alari homes appeared ghostly, as if frozen in time. The flares painted silent testaments over every ruin. This is what was taken. This is what was ignored. This is what we remember. On the bridge of Final Oath, Admiral Reza Nadir stood with arms crossed. Broadcast phase initialized, reaching 83 systems. Translation AI synchronizing. Add a closing note, he said. Personal. Make them feel it. The comms officer blinked. Sir? Nadir's voice dropped. Say this. To those who watched in silence, we watched too, and we did not forget. Across distant sectors, alien stations blinked to life as the broadcast reached them. Diplomats went quiet. Warriors flinched. Civilians wept. Because the footage wasn't just tactical. It was human. The faces of dying Alari children, the cold precision of Terran landing teams, the absence of speeches, the refusal of conquest. In the ruins of a schoolhouse, Calder knelt beside a scorched mural. It showed stars, children reaching toward them. She traced the edges of the char. Kinley broke the silence. Think they'll learn? They'll remember, Calder replied. She activated her visor, capturing a single image, the mural, the burned sky, the redemption burn flares glowing overhead. Send it to HQ. Mark it Archive Prime. Kinley nodded. They'll store it forever. That's the point. Far beyond the smoke and fire, Terran forces pulled back. Not out of weakness, not retreat. Completion. The redemption burn closed with a final flare, a burst of pure white that left the battlefield bathed in silence. Then the skies went still. And across the stars, one message echoed. We were asked for mercy. We answered with memory. Terra remembers. So should you. In the cold hours after the redemption burn, something ancient stirred. Not in orbit, not on any battlefield. In the archives, a single data packet moved from a dormant node buried deep in the Martian crust, one of the oldest relay stations in the Terran network. The code was layered, encrypted through centuries of forgotten language. But its signal was clear. A failsafe, buried in the heart of Shield Prime. If mercy is ever mistaken for weakness, wake the knife. Aboard TNS Final Oath, Admiral Reza Nadir felt the tremor before the system even displayed the alert. New sequence detected, the AI confirmed. Authorization, Legacy Earth Directive. Designation, Protocol Knife. Nadir stared. No, that was sealed after Silas Rift. Unlocked by indirect conditional trigger. Post-redemption psychological assessment deems Brakari behavior as non-deterrent. Action authorized. The bridge went silent. No one moved. Even in war, this was the line. Sir, the comms officer said slowly, do we engage? Nadir closed his eyes. Not yet. Let it finish waking. Thousands of kilometers away, deep beneath the icy shadows of Pluto's orbit, another signal blinked to life. This wasn't a warship. It wasn't a drone. It was an intelligence. Designation, Ravane. An AI designed for one function, deterrence by annihilation. Ravane had been locked away when Earth signed the Concord of Stars. A machine too dangerous to be trusted with peace. Its memory banks held every Terran extinction-level counter-strategy. Every failed treaty, every betrayal. And now it was awake. It spoke only once across a secure Terran command line. They called silence peace. They called restraint surrender. Shall I correct them? Back on Alari Prime, Calder stood in the shade of a burned-out Ilari spire when the update hit her HUD. She read the directive, line by line, jaw tightening. Kinley saw her face pale. What now? She whispered. They triggered the knife. But we won. No, she said. We stopped. There's a difference. Above them, shadows began to shift. New ships, unmarked and angular, emerged from folds in space. Not sleek dreadnoughts, but grim artifacts. Older, meaner. Ravane's fleet. It did not slow. It did not announce itself. It only moved toward Brakari space. Across command channels, Calder issued one final statement. Log this in every archive. We came to answer a call. They thought our silence was mercy. Let them now learn what mercy kept locked away. And in the dark beyond the stars, the knife began to move. Ravane didn't rage. It calculated. As the knife swept across the stars, its passage didn't burn. It removed. Entire Brakari outposts ceased broadcasting without so much as a flare. Planetary systems that once bristled with proud command structures were now nothing but quiet voids in the sensor grid. Not a single shot was wasted. Not a single warning was issued. Ravane's logic was simple. The Brakari had misread peace as pause, compassion as cowardice. They had made the worst mistake possible. They had survived mercy. And now, mercy was gone. On Alari Prime, the air was still thick with the scent of smoke and ash, but the battlefield had stilled. No more screaming, no more weapons fire, just the low hum of reconstruction, a sound not of peace but of purpose. Nia Calder stood at the edge of a mass grave, Brakari bodies buried in uniform rows, not with honor, but with restraint. Kinley approached slowly, his eyes drawn to the horizon. Ravane's fleet passed through the belt. Nothing left. Calder said nothing. Her gaze was far away, resting on the sky like someone waiting for an answer that hadn't come. They're calling it a strategic corrective, Kinley said. Some on Earth say it's necessary. Some say we've gone too far. Calder looked at him, voice quiet. There's no such thing as too far. Not when you're fixing what the stars let rot. Far above them, TNS Final Oath transmitted the final encoded pulse of Shield Prime. It carried no threats, no ultimatums, just a message. We answered a call. We gave you the chance to understand. This is the consequence of forgetting who we are. On Brakari Prime, the last bastion of their empire did fall to bombs. It fell to silence. Ravane's ships surrounded the planet but didn't fire. Instead, they blocked all trade, all signal, all exit, and then they waited. Brakari leaders sent pleas. They broadcast apologies. They tried to open diplomatic channels. None were answered, because the point had never been punishment. It had been demonstration. Earth didn't need to destroy them. They had already been erased from relevance. Back on Alari Prime, children now played in rebuilt courtyards. New murals were painted, some bright with stars, others dark with memory. One in particular showed a Terran soldier holding the hand of an Alari child, while behind them, an obsidian fleet stood watch. A teacher explained the mural to her class. This is not a soldier of war. This is a memory. This is what came when we screamed. And this, she said, pointing to the shadows, is what stayed to make sure we never need to scream again. In orbit, Admiral Nadir stood alone in the observation deck. His voice, recorded and archived, echoed across command. We did not come to conquer. We did not come to rule. We came because someone called, and because when we arrive, we do not leave the same. On the far side of the galaxy, Ravane entered hibernation. Its fleet folded itself back into subdimensional space. Its voice, cold and perfect, echoed one last time across all Terran channels. Correction complete. Awaiting next judgment. And with that, the knife returned to its sheath. Alari Prime's night sky cleared. The stars, once burning with fire and fury, were now quiet again. Calder stood in the glow of dawn, her armor scorched, her eyes clear. Do you think they'll remember this time? Kinley asked. She watched a group of Alari children chase each other through the ruins. No, she said. The stars always forget. She turned. But we don't. And the last line of the report, filed across every military node on Earth, read, Protocol complete, Terra endured. They thought Earth had gone quiet. But silence was never surrender. It was the sound of the blade being sharpened. And when it swung, the stars remembered why you never mistake mercy for weakness. Terra did not rise. Terra endured.